go over, but you can look at that at your leisure. That includes all 8 of those constructs, and it includes all the questions that were asked and responded to. What I have is the district responses. Again, if you go to the website, you'll see the school responses. We think that this is a very effective way to take a look at what our teachers are thinking and how effective they consider their environment at school, the learning environment, the opportunities that they can make available to kids. And it's very enlightening to take a few minutes and look at that. And it's also useful, I think, to look at each school level. And if you have time, you may want to do that. But as I looked over those different schools and the differences in the responses there, it tells a great deal about the environments in those buildings, and it tells a great deal about what's on those teachers' minds. It also gives us some insight into the direction that we need to go in providing assistance. And I thank you very much for your attention. And Mr. Radcliffe, I'll turn the lights back on and turn the agenda back over to you.
Next is an instructional dialogue. You took care of that. Next is the action by consent. Let's take the action by consent with the elimination of items 31, 32, and 37 that we pulled out, which will go into learning support discussion with action. Okay. Action by consent, including all the items except items 31, 32, and 37.
Chairman, I move to accept those as amended. A second.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Alford, a second by Mr. Maynard. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, then next we have, let's go to the learning support discussion with action. Number 1, approve setting the 2013-14 tax rate at the compensating rate of 56.7 cents per $100 of valuation with 0.2 cents for exoneration.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a remark here. I know there's been some publicity regarding that compensating rate, but what I would like to make clear to everyone is the compensating rate with the 0.2 cents for exoneration is exactly the amount of, would generate the amount of money that we had last year to work with. We're not asking for an additional amount of money from the taxpayers. We recognize, as Mr. Dotson suggested, that the citizens of our county are taxed at a high level, and that we appreciate that very much. But we are asking that by approving this compensating rate, we generate and make available to the school district and to the children of this district the amount of money that was made available last year and the year before. So we're not asking for any additional monies at all. We're not asking for additional revenue to work with. We're simply asking for the same amount of money that we've had for the past 2 years in order to function and function effectively and provide the opportunities for the kids in this district.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Is that not a raise on the property tax? Although we're getting the same amount of money, we're not asking for any more. Would it be a raise on my property tax or yours?
Inasmuch as there was a decrease in the assessment, then we are asking for 1 cent for $100. That would be $10 for $100,000 of property valuation.
How much money for $100,000?
$10 for $100,000 of valuation. That would result in an addition to the taxpayer. But what that would do is enable us to function at the same level that we have for the past 2 years.
Is there any guarantees that if we do that we would get the same amount of money? Could we get less? Could we get?
The only guarantee would be if the assessment, if the collection was at the same rate. And as I understand, that was 96% last year.
About 98.
98% last year.
I don't know exactly what the sheriff
And
said.
if that collection rate was less, then we would have a diminishing return.
Question I have about this is, probably the mining facilities that have gone out. Of course, we know that their assessment would be down, and probably wouldn't be able to pay if their assessment wasn't down. On their equipment, their assessment would have gone down, and on all their tools, all their trucks. That's true. We can see that. But you have, and probably lots of assessments have gone down on people's home and their lot, because they had to leave here to find a job somewhere else. So the assessment would go down. Now, on my assessment has not gone down. I looked at my own, has not gone down. So what we're doing, we're putting tax on people who have stayed here, trying to make a meager living, trying to send their children to school, trying to pay their bills. Lots of these people that have stayed here are on welfare, they're on food stamps, trying to live any way they can, and $10, that may not seem like much to us, but I'm afraid of those people it does. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to bring up the people who are staying here, struggling. We're making them pay up for the difference of these coal companies and gas companies that their assessments have gone down. And I don't think we should put that on the back of our hard-working people.
I think we need to be able to function, and I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the compensating rate of exoneration for the 2013-2014 school year.
That's the 56.9.
Exoneration.
This number on this is not correct. It's supposed to be 56.9.
It's 56.7 plus the .2. Right, that makes it
56.7 and plus .2 would probably make 56.9.
What's the difference in the money amount if we don't add the .2?
$2 per $100.
It's $54,098.
How much?
$54,098. Potential revenue.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, potential.
Well, once, I think, number one, it's gonna affect number two on that, learning support discussion action. Which if you gonna leave it the same, then we'll have to do something a little different on number two. So, if that's why you want, the board wants to keep it to, about the 2.2, then it's gonna be a bigger discussion on number two. Because we'll have to not put ourselves in a position of, having a bigger raise due to the fact that we're not gonna have the tax dollars that we normally would have, so I don't mind leaving one at 56.7, but we definitely will have to discuss number two a little bit stronger.
One thing I want to mention is if the compensating rate is not passed, you don't only impact just this budget, it impacts every budget from here on out.
Yeah.
Permanently. Because the next year compensating rate will be this year's income, not last year. So in effect, we're cutting not only this year's budget, but every budget after this.
Yeah.
That's my only comment, not my decision.
But now we're not understanding .2.
All I'm saying is that what the compensating rate does is give you the potential to produce the same revenue as the prior year, what you functioned on, and in this case, the prior 2 years. If we don't pass the compensating rate and another rate were to get set or whatever, I don't know what y'all are planning to do, I'm just saying it impacts every budget from here on out, because then your compensating rate is set at a new level.
But, last year our rate was 55.9, right?
Yes.
Then if this is passed, as listed here, it doesn't become 56.7, it becomes 56.9.
If we pass the 0.2 for exonerations, yea or nay on that, I mean, yes.
Yes, the motion is 56.9.
Right.
56.7.
I make a motion.
Do I hear a second?
I guess I'm the bad guy, but we have to function. And like I said, there's other things down the line tonight we're not gonna be able to do if we don't have anything.
One of the things that this whole agenda will cause us to have to do is to make sure that we tighten our belts a little bit more, as we have done over the last year or two. We've accumulated some money this time, and I believe that through watching our energy expenditures a little closer, by watching our other, by watching hiring a little bit better, and making sure that what we just hire is those that are necessary to teach the kids and do the training, and to only buy vehicles to the extent that we need them. I believe that we can be able to meet whatever requirements that we have to meet and still give our folks a raise.
We have an aging fleet. We've not bought buses in 3 years, which we should buy at least 10 to 12 years. We're already that far behind. We have at least 3 to 4 schools that desperately need roofs right now.
We do.
I don't think, we're gonna be able to do all that without at least having the income we've had in the past. And then I think there's something on the agenda, which they're well deserving of, we give our staff a raise or a bonus. Now, I don't think the math is gonna add up to do all those things. And before, the most important thing is for the children, we have to have roofs on some of these schools, and we have to have our fleet of buses. Answer, when's the last time we bought buses?
Just make the third year.
Third year. And tonight, I think we just, on the agenda, it's just about 5.
I tend to agree with Dr. Johnson to the extent here. If we're not going to pass this tax, then we need to strongly consider what we're going to do on item number 2. I mean, that's just the way this has got to be. If we're not going to do this, then the question becomes, are we going to be able to afford a raise? I mean, you look at some of these numbers here. You've got on here right now, a $500 raise, that costs us $810,000. A $400,000 raise is gonna cost us $640,000. So we're sitting here talking about a tax rate that, if we're not gonna do it, and trust me, I am not a fan at all of this whatsoever. But if we're not gonna do that, then we need to reevaluate where we stand on doing a raise. And I agree with Dr. Johnson, there is not a doubt in my mind that our employees deserve that. I mean, they work hard. They're the hardest working bunch of people I've ever met in my life. But that doesn't change the fact that numbers are numbers. And at the end of the day, we're gonna have to make a decision on what we're gonna do with the tax rate will affect what we do with this raise. Now, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, are we ready to raise taxes, bring in the same amount of revenue, to give these employees a raise, or are we not going to do it?
Well, let me add one other thing to it, for consideration. One of the reasons that I selected to pull out item number 32 that I pulled out was to see whether or not we might be able to delay the decision to purchase those things a little bit further into the year. And whether or not by that time we might determine whether or not we need all that we have asked for. I was hoping that, and I've asked for this a couple of times now, that we get with Mr. Casey, the transportation person there, and sit down and go over these runs and see. Up my way, I get constantly bombarded when I go to the post office and the bank, and why are you running this school bus with only 5 people in it? Of course, you know, I know a little bit more than they do. I know that they're either just picked them up or they're just not got to where they drop them off yet. But there are a lot of those situations where their buses are not really full.
Well,
And
Mr. Ross, let me interrupt you, if I can. Some of those buses, when they drop students off, they pick up that 5 or 7 and take them on to day treatment or to Voltec. So that's the reason you're gonna have some few passengers in bus. I mean,
yeah, I understand. That's why I
but
said
I
I
hear
know a
that
little
quite a
bit
bit,
more.
I just wanted to clear about
I
it.
knew a little bit more about it than they did, but I can't convince them of anything of that nature. So I think it would be a good idea. I know that we got about 30 buses, somewhere around that. You can tell me.
3 years ago, we got 37.
And how many do we have out there as spares that we could use if one breaks down?
We probably got in the neighborhood of 12 to 15.
Well, somebody told me it was more like 25.
Well, we got some additional at Palm Creek, 1 or 2 over there, and we got 1 or 2 extra in the Peter Creek area.
Yeah.
The thing about buses, if we don't do it each year, we're gonna get hit hard when all these buses are 10, 15
Get
years old.
compensated for up to
I agree,
13
we
years.
got to have solid transportation for our children, you know, and
Even if
safe
you get 10 or
transportation.
12 per year, we'll just be the average age on the bus, will be over 10 years.
Mr. Casey, I mean, we're gonna discuss this here in just a few minutes, I'm sure, before we go into executive session. I mean, is that, Mr. Chairman, is that your plan?
Or-
To discuss the items we moved
All
for
the items before you go into executive.
before executive
Yeah.
session? Okay, are you gonna be here for a few minutes?
Yeah, I won't be here duration.
Okay, I'm gonna have some questions for you on those.
It's 5.
I think it's 5, it's on the
My
request.
goodness, people, I run transportation years ago. You can't survive that way, and on diesels, what are they, on the 10-year,
Yeah.
are they on a 10-year cycle?
It's 13.
13?
But for years, we bought up to 15 to 18. That keeps your
Yeah.
fleet turned over the way you need to be. Now, the last 2 years, we haven't bought any. This year, we're down to 5. But you know, that's your guys',
But we
Yeah, like that
also
decision.
got on the list some other vehicles that may or may not be needed at this time. That's the reason I asked to pull the funny out, to see whether or not there could be a delay in making the decision this time to buy those particular items of the buses and the other vehicles.
Well, that's in a different area. I think what we're on now is the tax rate. We gotta decide that when we.
Well, I was just responding to what they were talking about.
I mean, if my motion dies, where do we stand?
Another motion.
Gentlemen, let me say that I'm firmly convinced that each of you want a first-class, world-class school system.
Absolutely.
You want every opportunity for our kids. And we're not going to do that by backing up. We've had some problems in the past. I know you recognize some of the academic issues that we've been involved in, and I know that you want to make a difference. And I do not see how you can do that with backing up in terms of funding. I think the county is at a relatively low rate. I know districts that are adjacent to us that are significantly higher, and they have, it makes a difference in the school system. So I think if you're committed to having a first-class school system, you've got to be committed to fund that, and you've got to be committed to making a tough decision. And if you back up on funding, you're backing up on the educational opportunities for these kids.
Can I say one comment? We have a district very close to us that's 13 cents higher in property tax, 24 cents higher on motor vehicle tax, and significantly higher in test scores. That's my only comment.
If we're gonna leave it at the same rate, then I wanna make a motion to table number 2. Or we'll have to look at it. just the way it is. Because we won't have the money.
I think number two is the main one, the main reason for your here. Let's do something with number one.
Okay.
I guess my motion is done.
Motion.
Do I need to make a motion again, or is it? I guess it's due.
No seconds, yeah.
Do what?
I said, if there's no second, I guess it's legal.
There's another motion. Okay, let's go to item two.
Pardon, well, what happens now? I mean, it's the state.
The law
they go-
the law takes over.
Okay, so the state's gonna tell us what to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
What is the legal situation in this regard?
It's my understanding that you're gonna get the compensated tax rate.
45 days from now, 45 days from the date the assessment was approved, which means we hold up the Pike County tax bills for 45 days.
Is that right?
Yeah, you hold up
Not
the
the
tax.
one plus the
You hold the tax
42.
bills up to 45 days, but you have the same tax bill.
Is that the same thing?
So you just create a delay.
That's what I thought.
Okay, item number two. Under learning support discussion with action. Approve the discussion and implementation of a 1% pay rate / $500 or $400 supplement for each active certified and classified full-time employee of Pike County Board of Education for the 2013-14 school year. And under board item 1309-6, I make the motion that the Pike County Board of Education on this Tuesday, September 10, 2013, implement each active full-time classified and certified employee of the Pike County Board of Education with a pay raise / supplement of $500 for the 2013-14 school year. Do I hear a second?
I second.
All in favor? Roll call vote. Mr. Bill?
No,
Mr. Manning? Mr. Osborne?
Yes.
Dr. Johnson?
I can't, at this moment, I can agree on a bonus, but I think if we can't pass the rate with the money, then I think it needs to be less. And,
right, I agree.
I can go for 400, because that's about how much we're gonna lose with this tax bill.
Okay, so your vote is no?
No.
Okay. I vote yes, so the
Well,
motion is failed.
Mr.
all right,
Chairman,
Mr. Chairman.
I make the motion that we institute a $400
So,
supplement.
Mr. Osborne, you had it first.
Well, that's all I had, I don't know. I was just gonna make the motion that we restore it $50. Make the motion for $450 if we can't get fined.
I'll second that. All in favor, Mr. Bill?
No,
No.
Mr. Manning?
Yes?
Dr. Johnson?
No.
I vote yes, so that one's failed.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we give every employee $400 supplement / bonus increase.
I'll second that.
And that is to be paid retroactive the last week of November.
I've got a ton of questions on that. First of all, we definitely don't need to call it a bonus. It needs to be a supplement, in order to meet the guidelines and an addendum to the salary schedule for KTRS to count that towards retirement. There are several other issues that come into legality as far as how the bonus is paid to whom, which we need to discuss with Mr. Neal concerning people who are on leave and those type of things. There are numerous questions that we have come up with, Mr. Lester and I, just in brief discussions of how to give the bonus. So there might need to be some guidelines. The amount doesn't matter, that's up to you all, okay? I'm not saying anything about that. Just that we might need to establish some guidelines that the board would, of course, approve.
And it's one time deal.
It's a one-time deal, yes, but
One-time.
there's specific verbiage to meet the guidelines of KTRS, and we want to make sure that we don't do anything to hurt any employee.
Well, I mean, put the verbiage in there that you.
Okay, I just want to make sure that you're aware that we're.
Some people may have
I mean,
two
we
jobs,
don't-
they'd be going eligible for one.
Right, we would want to
If you were a
clarify
teacher and a
that.
bus driver, you would not get two.
And we can bring those guidelines back to you at the October meeting.
Since
And we
some
do
of
that
them take
November
till
1st,
November
and we can
anyway.
approve the guidelines at that time.
Nobody gets paid double dip.
yeah, no double dipping, that kind of thing.
before we see where we have a motion by whom
I make a motion that we
just
accept.
$400.
400.
It's been seconded by Judge.
Okay, all in favor, Mr. Bill?
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Yes,
Dr. Dopp?
Yes.
And I vote yes. We have a unanimous vote. Item number 3, the lending support discussion with action. Approve entering into a contract with Ron Flannery Incorporated for an in-depth review of all schools for adherence to the accounting procedures of Kentucky School Activity Fund, also known as Red Book.
That would be the contract that we submitted at the work session, $750 per day. He suggested that he could do elementary schools 2 per day, high schools 1 per day. And if he did a sampling, and he would double that if he did an in-depth at each of those schools.
Okay, now this is only accounting procedures for school, accounting procedures for Kentucky School Activity Fund.
Yes, this would just be the school level.
For the
that's
school.
adopted.
This doesn't include, in the way it's worded, this does not include anything other than our school.
This would be a particular, that's his particular expertise. We would still be looking for additional reviews here at the office at your all's request. But this would be specific, this is the state expert on school red book and our accounting software that we use at the schools. He is the most knowledgeable, he does our training, our principals know him well, our secretaries know him well.
But who would be doing the audit for these other departments?
We have not got to the point, right now, all of the auditors that audit school districts are very actively involved in current school district audits. We are still working on guidelines and trying to work with those people to come up with a plan to do additional audits that you all have requested, and we are working on that. We were just trying to get this one started because this gentleman is available to do this now, and we can get this one out of the way and then do the next one.
right.
We were just trying to get something started as fast as possible. It's gonna be a little harder to get people in here from the school district audits because they're doing regular audits now.
I'll make that informed notice.
Wait, before anybody seconds, and let's have a little more discussion on it, since it is a discussion item.
Why couldn't we give our,
As I,
go ahead, Bruce, I'm
as
sorry.
I interpreted what we got at the budget meeting from Mr. Flannery, the things that he would be doing, and I believe I asked the question at that time, isn't that essentially the same thing that a regular auditor does?
It's similar, I don't know if, and is David Rowe here because his school we discussed.
Mr. Rowe had to leave, he had to go that home.
Okay, a lot of times, like his school, it was a very quick audit from a regular auditor because they can go in and do what the state requires them to do in a very short period of time. This is beyond that. He would take a much broader sampler. He would look further detailed in. He would also, he knows their software system. If our auditor does not do the software system, he would come in and take a backup of their software system and go through it, looking for inconsistencies and looking for adherence to policies and procedures. So it's more detailed than what our audit currently is. It can be even more detailed if we request it.
Why didn't we just hire him instead of the regular auditor?
That's not how it works, because the law, we have to go out and get someone to audit our district that audits the whole district to the guidelines established by the state out of their control. They used to pay for this audit. Of course, now they don't, like they don't pay for most of the stuff they make us do. But they used to pay for it, and we had to meet their guidelines. And that auditor has to go to their training, be trained by them. I was a part of that training session. I know what they do. Then they come back out and they audit to these specific guidelines as established by the state with set due dates, set guidelines, and set procedures. Ron comes in, he actually is a part owner of a CPA service that does this kind of audit and may be interested in doing our expanded audit of our district later. But his expertise has always been school level finances, Red Book, and EPS software, which we utilize in our school district. He is willing to come and do this. He has established a new company for just this so many school districts are wanting more in-depth training and more in-depth audits of their school level finances.
Are
So
we training them or are we auditing?
we're auditing. They've been trained this year. However, as a convenience to our staff when we're out there, if those principals have a question, Ron's the answer that is the person to answer. And that is something that they're looking forward to. However, they will be extremely well audited. He is very good at what he does. And if I go to a training in this state, every training I've had on radio in the last 16 years has been done by Ron Flannery.
Well, there's no way that he does the other.
Now, I'm not saying he can't do the other. It would have to be his different company that he's in. He is a half owner of a CPA firm that also does that. But right now, they've already engaged in auditing contracts for districts to meet the state guidelines. They may very well be interested in doing that after November 1st when our regular audits are over. But we have several people that may be interested after November 1st that have audited school districts and will come in and do the extended audit that you all want done here at central office. But right now, they're engaged in doing audits for the state.
This is, in my view, this is not satisfying what we wanted. We wanted not only the same.
Well, this is only one piece of the audit that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
but we may not get the other until when?
I'm thinking it'll probably be the 1st of November before you get somebody that's trained to audit a school district that has time. I am talking to one person who's no longer doing school audits that could possibly come in and do the audit in a sooner period of time. But right now, those people who have been trained this year to do school audits are doing school audits that have to meet the state deadline of November 1st to be submitted. So they don't have time to come in and do this extra in-depth audit. Now, we could contract with their own auditor we already have, and you guys could say, we want you to look at this, this, and this, and let me give you a price. I certainly would take that to him. He wouldn't have a problem with that. But you got to say what this, and this is. It can't be, I want to shoot that gun at that forest to kill the deer. Remember I told you, we can't do that. We got too many trees.
That is not what we're gonna do at the school too. Tell them what we want.
Yeah, I mean, he knows, when you're talking about a school audit, he has done more fraud audits and more evaluation audits than anybody I know. He knows what to look for. And he will come back and say, if he goes into a school and he says, I think there's more here we need to look at, he's gonna come to you all, because you're hiring. He's gonna say, guys, there's more here to look at, I think we need to go back and do this. If it's something he finds immediately, we may be calling you immediately and say, he thinks we need to go more in depth right here, right now. And this is what this man does, and he is very good at it.
He wouldn't come to school board members last.
You guys are hiring him. He's doing an audit on your behalf. He would come, of course, he will speak with me and Mr. Lester as we're your all's liaisons to him during the audit process. But if he felt like, and he can make a final report to you all at a board meeting. That's what he would probably want to do, and you probably would want to hear from him and question him at a board meeting. But you guys are engaging in the contract with him to perform these services. Obviously, we've also discussed the fact that we could have a sampling of some schools that we do 100% of everything in them, just to make sure that we're looking as much as possible within reasonable guidelines.
This statement says enter into a contract. The contract's not been developed yet.
No, what we're saying is he's giving you his pricing and his concept. His contracts are going to state those things, okay? We just wanted to make sure you were in agreement with that before we go out to him and say, here, put all this down. But he's agreed to what he's sent us in his proposal. He wanted you all to give the final guidelines, how you want him to do it, and kind of a tentative amount of time. But he understands that it could be longer, just like I explained to you all, that if we find stuff, it may take longer to complete the audit.
And that was the proposal you gave us.
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
he gave us an eight item review that he's going to do, Virgil.
Yeah, that's that was my original statement, that it's the same reviews that our regular.
No, not really.
But we're just entering the contract with him, but we're not approving his contract. The way this is worded. We entered a contract, but we haven't approved his.
I guess technically we'd have to bring the contract.
I think his proposal would be, in effect, a contract.
To him, it was what the contract would be.
The proposal he actually wrote indicating the amount of money and
That's a proposal, what you accepted, you have a
would be a
contract.
contract.
Yeah.
So, well, yes, he's ready to go.
I'll put that in form of motion
You
of
make a
item 3.
proposal, so much money per day, you're accepting that, once you have an offer and acceptance, you have a contract. The formality of it is simply him presenting a written contract and Mr. Rackett signing as chairman of the board.
So we're good to go.
Okay, we have a motion.
A second.
Motion second. for item number 3. That's the agreement with Ron Flannery. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Let's look at the items that we pulled, which would be 31. Who pulled that one?
You did.
Approve the advertising for bid. I pulled one, Roberta pulled one, I didn't remember which one. Approve the advertising for bid and purchasing from the state contract bid list, the attached list of fleet vehicle. Well, only question I had about that, if we won't have the funds to do it, so we cut down on the raise to these employees, so I make a motion that we accept item 31.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. 32, approve the purchase from state contract bid list, attached list of school bus vehicles.
Well, you've already heard some of my explanation, and the reason for me pulling that out was to determine whether or not some of those things might be useful to, that we could put off a little bit later to make a final decision about that, but
Those are all replacing high mileage, old vehicles.
Mr. Casey,
Yes.
what's your oldest bus that you have
We've
running?
got some that's about 14 years old.
About 14 years old. What did you say the last time?
The lifetime that we get money back from the state is 13 years.
And those two, those are handicap buses we're buying?
Yes, and we need those
How
desperate.
old?
And I can tell the whole board, the 5 buses that's on this right here is not near enough for the transportation department.
I think
Not even in the ballpark.
I think-
And I appreciate the fact that it's going to be voted on, but we need about 15 or 20.
I think at the budget meeting you submitted, I think it was like.
We had 11, I think.
Was it 11?
11 that we submitted.
There was
But
a
I
higher
understand all the
priority.
other things that goes into this decision making, but we're pleased.
But I'll tell you, 2 of these is for handicap, and let me tell you something, people.
And they'll be hauling a very few
Be a
number of
problem
people.
with the deal. Be a big problem if we don't take care of this.
I'll make the motion that we,
I say,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Let's see, then we have another one, that
37.
number 37, that's pulled out. Approved contract with Security Force Incorporated for nationwide toll-free 800 telephone monitoring service referred to as the Safe School Hotline for the receipt of information from the Pike School Districts, students, employees, and others who have suspicions and or information of wrongdoing, illegal or unethical acts or other forms of laws related to the school district's operation, property, or employees. I have a question about that. On who receives these calls?
Brandon, would you like to address that? She had a meeting with the individuals that,
well, that's the blue folder that they.
Yeah, the blue folder I gave you was the information regarding the telephone calls and all the information. The district draws up a contact list, and those individuals are the ones that are contacted in case of an emergency. If it's a life-threatening emergency, that program contacts 911 as well as a school official. And we, as a district, determine who is on that list.
We haven't determined anything yet, have we?
No.
Did we get a contract?
Yes, Mr. Smith has a
Mr.
contract.
Smith, you have any, you reviewed that contract?
Well, for example, that's not in there. That they will also call 911. The thing that concerns me about this contract is that some child, once the school district adopts a policy and procedure for receiving and handling, let's say, calls of a child who's being bullied or a child who's contemplating suicide, Once you adopt that policy and procedure, you are bound to follow that policy and procedure. You then have a ministerial duty under the Gennaro case, meaning it's not discretionary. And if there's an emergency call and we drop the ball, we get sued, we're responsible for the death of a child who's committed suicide for whatever reason. They also have a provision in here that if anybody's gonna sue them, they've gotta go to Columbus, Ohio to do it. If we get sued, we're gonna get sued here. And then we're gonna have to turn around and sue them in Columbus, Ohio. That's gotta go. That's not a provision that I would recommend that you allow to stay in this contract. There are a lot of things, I'm sure that you talked about this fellow. Yeah, real close.
Jay Morgan, the
Okay.
person that came
That
back.
I'm sure are important issues that are not in this contract. So I probably need to talk to somebody at
He said that he was.
Security Voice Inc., because this contract could use a lot more language, in my opinion. I mean, I just got this week, I believe, and I've looked at it. It's a little more than a page and a half.
The conversation that I've listed in your paperwork sounds a little different than what the contract actually says.
Yeah, I've got that flash drive, and yeah, it is different.
Yeah,
And
I take the.
they need to be consistent.
Yes.
Well, I think we need to look at it, we need to table this thing and let you review it, and call them.
Okay.
and all that.
I think that's a
You
good
make that
idea.
motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion is tabled until the next board meeting. Okay, where are we? So let's go on to executive session. We'll hear a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Manning? Mr. Ross with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?